licensed gun owners, and certainly responsible gun owners, are here for self-protection. Self-defense, self-protection are what we're interested in. As you can tell, I'm a native of New York. I'm down here for 43 years. In New York, they tightened up gun laws for years. Only friends of politicians could have a gun. And what happens in the 70s, 2,500 people were getting shot by illegal guns, by people with illegal guns in New York. Only the criminals had guns. I will stand by the Second Amendment rights here in Georgia. I will defend them for each and every one of you and every citizen of Georgia, because responsible gun owners are safer people and safe for all of us. Thank you.
Sonia.
When I was in college, you might not know this, but I actually had and still have a marksmanship badge. I was a member of the NRA when Charlton Heston was the president. That's how far I go back as an NRA member. I am one of those folks who truly believe in the Second Amendment. Any changes to that is dangerous. And the reason why, I think that if you start making small changes to anything that's constitutional, you're going to run into problems. If you change one, you're going to have to change everything. We need to keep our constitutional rights for the Second Amendment as it is. I own a gun. I don't know if Gordon owns one, but I know I own one. And, you know, my son lives in Florida, and we crack jokes about him because he walks with a little briefcase with guns. And he's not crazy. I think he thinks because of where he lives, we go to practice together. Nobody would know this, but Ashford Schwab, I've been having little problems with him lately. Ashford, Gordon, and I go up to the mountains. We actually practice skeet shooting up there. I'm really good. Ashford will tell you how good I am. But seriously, that Second Amendment is very important, and it protects our rights as citizens in this country. We need to leave it as it is. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't believe that we should change anything for the right of the citizens to bear arms, and then the criminals are getting more and more weapons. Nothing is going to change, even if they try to change the amendment. It means the criminals are going to get more weapons. They got to go do their job and get the weapons out of their hands while we keep ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Stephanie.
Can I just ask a question about the question? Was the question about something about Republicans?
Locally, the Second Amendment Preservation Act, House Bill 293 prevents Georgia police officers from enforcing any federal mandates limiting our Second Amendment rights. Unfortunately, there are some Republicans in the Georgia legislature who are attempting to water down this legislation. Can we count on our Republican leadership to pass this bill unsullied?
Okay, without the Second Amendment, everything else doesn't matter. It's just that simple. If we can't protect ourselves, then the government has full control. If there are Republicans trying to water it down, because the federal government is trying to create, we all know this, right? Trying to create communist society, or depending. They're trying to control us and not allow us to have the freedoms and the liberties that this party stands for. And that's what we're fighting for. It's what I'm fighting for my kids. And if there are Republicans that are trying to water that down, and not, if it's clean and clear that we're not allowing the feds to alter what we're doing in the state, maintaining local control, and there are Republicans that are trying to water that down, shame on them. This is about the United States of America. This is about the Constitution. This is about the Second Amendment. End of story. That's what we need to stand up for as a party, and that's what we need to hold our elected officials for. And so as party members in this chair, it would be, in this party, it would be our responsibility to communicate with the membership, to communicate with those representatives, to let them know how unacceptable that is. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonia. Do you support the recent statement by Governor Brian Kemp that he wishes to divorce from the Georgia GOP and take his high-dollar donors with him? Please explain your feelings on this sudden stance.
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Oh, sure. Okay, I'll repeat it, sorry. Do you support the recent statement by Governor Brian Kemp that he wishes to divorce from the Georgia GOP and take his high-dollar donors with him? Please explain your feelings on this sudden stance by the governor.
I did not hear the statement, so you're saying that Brian Kemp made that statement, right?
I didn't write the question, but I did hear it on the radio.
Okay, all right, because I didn't hear the statement, but I've been hearing, people have been saying it, and I've not heard it directly myself. But I would just share a quick story with you. It was my understanding that Brian Kemp had called in some African-American Republican folks and talked to them. And he promised them that he would put more diversity on the boards throughout the state. And one of the members that was, the Georgia Black Republican Caucus is what it's called, one of the members called me and said they were very disappointed that Brian Kemp made all these promises to put conservatives on these boards throughout the state, and he ended up putting Democrats. I've been following the appointment of different people. I'm not surprised if Brian Kemp were to shift parties. I don't know what that would cause in terms of, if Brian Kemp shift and go to the Democratic Party, we just have to find a conservative Republican and work with them and put them in office. I know that he got a lot of Democratic votes. People have called us. They wanted to vote for him. My daughter was one of them because he raised the salaries of the teachers. And so we just need to do a better job. I don't know the reason that he thinks that he wants to do that, but I think he's probably getting so much support from the Democrats that he's been bought off. That's a conversation that we have to have moving forward. I don't have any feelings on that, one way or another. As you always say, when God closes one door, he opens another. So what we have to do is just get somebody else to replace him. Simple as that.
Thank you, Sonia. Stephanie, you need to repeat?
No. This is the first I've actually heard of this. However, I did hear an interview with Paul Ryan the other night, who said that if Trump were the candidate, he was not going to go to the National Convention. And I heard him say that, and I just sat there shocked. So not only are we fighting against the Democrats, fighting against keeping the Second Amendment, fighting against freedom of religion, fighting against freedom of speech, but we're fighting within our party. And it's this, I haven't quite come to the conclusion, is it deliberate or not? Because I want to believe that it's not. But the personal opinions, and I don't like Trump, I like Trump, I don't like DeSantis, I like DeSantis, whatever's going on with Brian Kemp. If their goal is to destroy the party, they're doing a great job of it, and they need to cut it out. We need to stand for, and again, it's the grassroots, it's we the people. We're way stronger together. We the people stand up. We're the ones that control what they're doing, and we just need to work together to push back and say, I'm not exactly sure what you're doing, but the Republicans in the state stood up for you, and they voted for you, and they put you in a second time. Cut it out. Whatever your petty game is, what's at stake for us is far greater than whatever his financial issues are. So that's just not acceptable, and we need to be able to be strong enough to say that and to push back, because he'll ultimately need our vote, I'm sure, for some other election he wants to run for, and if he thinks he can do it without Georgia, well, we'll have to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter?
Well, here's reality. That was not Governor Kemp's statement. Georgia Strong is really the inaugural committee that has gone permanent to raise money for a political action committee, probably for forwarding Brian Kemp's future, either in the Senate or some other position. What he did say, which she said very publicly, is that the Georgia GOP, our state party, is becoming less and less relevant. And as a candidate for office this year, where the Georgia GOP was supposed to be getting out the vote of hard R's, we're all hard R's, we were supposed to get our vote, they failed. They failed, clearly. The Georgia GOP is getting less relevant because we are not putting in leadership. That's what we're doing here, folks. We're going to go off to Columbus. Let's elect change. The grassroots has an ability to elect very active people. Governor Kemp is saying the Georgia GOP is becoming less relevant and it's not the future. Let's prove him wrong. The Fulton County Party has become less relevant. Let's change it and be more relevant. And let's have fun doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Stephanie, you're up. What plans do you have to win the early vote?
So what's very interesting is the Republicans seem to have continued the same playbook pushing for that election day. The first time that I ran, early voting wasn't that significant. And I could see it when I would go door to door and I would talk to people. Within 2 years, that early vote mattered. You need to start campaigning and engaging so at the local level, way before you qualify. And the Republicans need to take that more seriously. You need to be able to get in front of people in the campaign process because those people really do start voting on that first early election. And within 8 short years, we have gone from having most of the votes on that November date to having most of the votes front-ended in the early election. So you have to engage the candidates, you have to be ready to campaign, you have to be on the ground, you have to have grassroots, and you have to have a plan to be able to drive an election. But Republicans have to stop thinking that that November date is the date they're striving for. That's why a lot of those debates that happened throughout the nation later in the year didn't have any relevance. Like the senator in Philadelphia. People were voting for someone they didn't even know for, and by the time they saw him, they regretted their vote. Well, shame on us. That's up to us. We need to engage and activate and be part of the process way sooner, and the party in and of itself has to recognize that I can't wait until that November date. It matters.
Thank you, Stephanie. Peter.
Great question. Anybody in the room ever hear of a guy named Scott Pressler? Yes, Scott Pressler. I called Scott today because I want to bring him to Fulton County, win or lose, your choice or not. I'll bring Scott Pressler to Fulton County to train him on, he calls it ballot collection. We need to get out the vote on day 1 of early voting. If we're going to have an election season, if we're going to have 3 weeks of election, it starts day 1. What happens on election day? There's no plan B. You've heard it before. There's no plan B on election day. People don't come out, it's raining, it's a beautiful day, they're playing golf. This needs to be part of our campaign. I learned it brutally on election day in November when I was waiting for 7,500 hard R's to come out and vote who said they'd come out and vote on election day, and the parking lots were empty in all of our precincts. It was empty for me and every other Republican on the ballot, including Bridget. We have to get those votes out day 1. We have to encourage it. Stephanie and I vote very early in the process. We sell the idea of, you want to get the calls to stop? Vote. You want to get the direct mail to stop? Vote. Voting early saves the candidates and the campaign's money, by the way. We are not spending it in the last week on people who have already voted. I beg of you, get your neighbors out on day 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Sonia.
I think historically, the Republicans will go on election day because they didn't trust the system. And the reason why people are, and now that has changed, and it has changed with the Senate bill that now only allows those seniors to send in their application, they have to apply, they get that application, they fill it out, and they send it back. That has changed the whole dynamic of early voting. Now it's much safer for Republicans to vote early because we don't have to worry about those ballots going into Fulton County and someone's playing funny games with them. That's what the problem is. People don't trust the system. And there have been many changes that would now allow people to feel a little safer. I would say that early voting is very important. Gordon and I have to vote early voting by choice. We know we have to do it because we work the polls. So we have to get our vote out. We always work early voting anyway. But I know that a lot of Republicans don't do it. And we have to keep working with folks and encouraging them and ensuring them that their votes are safe when they vote early, because now we have folks can go down to Fulton County and watch them pull those envelopes out of wherever they are, make sure they scanned them, and you stay in there all day until those votes are in that system. So that's a really good thing about the Senate bill. I believe early voting is very, very, very important. Anything can go wrong and we miss the opportunity to vote. But I think that if anyone were listening to me tonight and you had any doubts about early voting, it's safe now. It's safer now than it was before.
Okay, this may be the last question. Peter, describe at least 3 things you would support changing in the current Fulton County Republican Party bylaws.
Giving this thought, which may require 1 minute and 30 seconds of my time. It's got to be brutal for y'all. It's a long night. I think one of the first things we need to change in our bylaws is to spread out, something we did in the 6th District, spread out control. So we can't have a husband and wife running as executive officers of the party. That needs to be changed. We have to demand that somebody has been a member of a party, this is number 2, has been a member of the party for a certain length of time before they put themselves up to run the party. 3 weeks, in my opinion, is not enough time to make a decision how they're going to run the most important party in all of Georgia. The last thing, and again, there are a lot of rules we need to look at. Our mass meetings need to be closed to members of the party. We cannot have people coming in, it's an open meeting, but for some reason, we have people coming into our mass meetings, signing up as delegates, potentially, to make decisions on who leads us, the county, the district, and the state level. I think we need to close that down at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Sonia.
Boy, I thought I had the bylaws in the back of my head until you asked a question. But I know what pops out of my head is that in the bylaws there are a lot of discrepancies with notifying members of meetings. On one part of the bylaws it says it's 10 days, another part is 20, another part is 32, and it gets a little confusing where we have to go back really. I think that what we need to do with the bylaws, and this is one of the things I was going to do anyway, one of our chairmen, vice chairs, would be responsible for the bylaws. They actually need to be revised. There are a lot of things in there that we need to change and improve. I don't like the word change, but I like the word improve upon what's already in existence. So those time frames, one of the things in the bylaws that we have not done in the last 4 years since I was in the party, in an office, is we do not follow the bylaws. So we need a person that will be responsible for making sure that we are following the bylaws. Case in point, we have not had an audit for a Republican Party for the last 6 years that I've been a member. So even though it says in there that it's a yearly requirement, we need an operating committee. We need more enforcement of the bylaws. That's the second thing, that we need to empower the executive committee to really take on the role as the governing body of the party. So we have to reword that so that it's clear, because somehow when the people gets appointed as chairman, they're under the impression that I run the party, and if you ask questions, you are going to be ostracized because you are not supposed to ask me questions because I'm the chairman.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Stephanie.
Okay. So there definitely needs to be clear language in there if the executive committee or individuals on the executive committee are not following the bylaws, that there's a mechanism to be able to get them out without necessarily the executive committee. The bylaws are the rules that we have to follow. If you're not going to hold meetings, you're not going to be transparent, we don't know how money's being spent, you're not doing anything transparently, there has to be a mechanism in there. So I can't do the language right now, but clearly there needs to be a trigger for that, and the party should be able to manage that. Number two, yes, the bylaws are very clear about you're supposed to support the Republican ideals. There also needs to be clear language in there that if someone on these committees, now, if it's an error and someone does it, you have the right, you are innocent until you're proven guilty. But if you're proven guilty, again, trigger, you're out of that committee. You're not out of the party, but you're out of the committee. Because you're doing strategy for the party and you're supporting Democrats. No one's going to be able to trust that you're doing that. And the other piece is, so this is going to raise a lot of red flags. So in these committees, elected officials participate. So if I'm an incumbent and I'm on these committees and I'm doing strategy, but I'm not doing a great job and somebody wants to run against me, to me, that right there is a conflict of interest. The elected officials are in the middle. It's the party that's supposed to be managing that. I would remove them from at least the executive committee because it is an unfair advantage. They're the ones determining who's getting money, potentially, or being involved in that conversation. So those are the three top tickets I would change.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your cooperation. And now would you give a round of applause for our three candidates? Before we leave, we could use some help for those who can to put some chairs away. Karen Dubin is kind of leading the charge here. And if you had a water bottle, just use the trash can. And thank you very much for coming out. We really appreciate it. Got a lot of questions. We didn't get to them all. I apologize, but I didn't expect this many, and you guys were great. Thank you.